And we can have expectations in relationships, and it's important to do so to some degree. But in order to get each other there, it requires a great deal of acceptance of where our partner is at this time. And so in order to even begin to accept, we have to ask more questions, rather than just only referring to the way things have looked in the past that are similar, and then responding in that way that would be totally irrelevant for this person. Okay, so I first want to tell a little story of a couple who were seeing each other as the bad guy. The wife sent the guy off to go get rosemary bread from the store. And he spent a great deal of time there trying to find it, and come to find out they didn't have it there, despite all of the searching and having spent however long. So when he came back to the house, he came back empty-handed and said they didn't have it. And her response was something like, okay, well, I'll show you where it's at tomorrow. And that didn't set well with him, because he had spent so much time there. He felt very convinced that there just wasn't rosemary bread at the store. And so it created a kind of rift between them for a little while. And when they came back together and they talked about what had happened, it come to find out that the wife, what she had been through was, leading up to that point, was a lot of stress with work, a lot of stress with the kids, a lot of stress with whatever had gone on in her day, and of course he didn't know any of that. Her quick response of oh, I'll show you to where it's at tomorrow, to him was just dismissive of all the work that he had went through, and so it looked like that she was discounting him in some type of way. It seemed disrespectful or something like that. But if she would have known the time that it took him that time that he spent really trying to, from a place of love, really trying to make sure he got the thing his wife wanted. If she would have known that, then she perhaps wouldn't have been so quick to not honor that the gesture that she didn't even know that he did. And so this is just a small and relatively silly example of the way we can miss each other, and the other seem like disrespectful or a bad guy in some type of way. And this is just a small example, but as we all know, these small examples can compound pretty quickly, if the time isn't taken to really understand the intention of the other. So, with that being described, that fun little story, I wanted to next describe a kind of model that I think will help us refer to in these real life examples like what was just given. So, let's say that there's a building, and we'll go ahead and say the building doesn't have any windows, and there's someone on the inside and there's someone on the outside, and they're both looking at the same wall. And to be able to communicate what the other sees, they're on a cell phone. Okay, so that's the framework. So what often happens in relationships of any kind, is that each are looking at the same thing from a vantage point that is impossible for the other to truly know. So in this silly little example of one person on the inside of a house and the other person on the outside both looking at the same wall, the person on the outside of the home hasn't been where the person on the inside of the home is. They haven't been on the inside of the home. And so they're seeing the same wall, but from a different vantage point. And so is true for the person on the inside of the home. The person on the inside of the home hasn't been where the person on the outside of the home is. And so they haven't seen from that vantage point. They haven't pieced together all the pros and cons and all the dots that have been connected from that perspective. And so each person are on the phones looking at the same wall, trying to describe to the other what they're seeing. And the person on the inside of the home describes it as, maybe it's gray, it's made out of drywall, it has these pros and cons, and maybe it's warm inside, and then the person on the outside of the home looking at the same wall describes it in the same thing in a completely different way. They'll describe it as having siding, and there's perks to the siding. There's pros and cons, and there may be, of course, it's cold outside. And so this is a silly example because most people wouldn't take that personally. However, sometimes we can. But where things really get personal, whereas instead of looking at an object like a wall and missing each other that way, we remove the wall and are looking at each other doing the same thing. Now, in order to further exemplify the confusion that happens in communication, I want to, rather than remove that wall, I want to make that wall clear. And furthermore, I want on each side of the wall for there to be, we'll say, a computer. But instead of a computer screen, there's a projector. And the projector is projecting on each side of the wall, on the inside of the wall, on the outside of the wall, what it is that is on that computer. So what we're working with now is one person on the inside of the home and one person on the outside of the home. The wall is now clear, and there's a projector that's projecting what's on their computer on that wall. Okay. So, a little side note. I came up with this idea when I was on the phone last night with some tech support. Oftentimes I will talk to tech support, and it's just such a awkward and hard and arduous experience. Everyone knows. But last night I called this one company, and rather than me asking a question and just getting like this huge earful to where I have to attempt to take their concept and work really hard to apply it to what I see on my computer screen, they did something different. They asked me, when I asked my question, they asked me, what do you see on your screen right now? And I was able to very simply describe, and they said, oh, okay, well, click on that. And we went back and forth like that a couple times and very quickly resolved my issue. So we didn't miss each other. It was a super easy conversation. We understood each other due to that very simple step of asking, what do you see? What is on your screen? So, back to our little analogy with the invisible wall and a person on each side of the wall with their own computer, but instead of a screen on their computer, there's a projector projecting on the wall. And the reason why this is helpful to have a projector projecting on the wall is because we're relating what is seen on the wall to what is in our mind, to our thoughts. Because that's the way we experience life. It's not, what is in our thoughts is not isolated to a real small area like a computer screen. It covers the whole thing. It's the way we see the world. And so by having the projector project on the wall, it helps to, on a clear wall, it helps to paint the picture that in each moment, we really have this clear wall with a projector projecting content onto the world or onto the other in each moment. And so in order to harmoniously navigate life, we're going to have to really inquire about what is being projected onto the person we're trying to be in harmony with, what is on their screen. And oftentimes the usual approach is like what I usually find in certain customer service calls is that they throw tons of stuff at me and expect me to try to discern through it and then apply it to my own life, to my own screen. But maybe there's a more efficient way. Maybe there's a way that we could really lead our partner to harmonious understandings. And in order to do so, we would need to ask questions. What does your screen look like? What is on your screen right now? And by asking them that question, we can begin to create an understanding of what previously seemed like disrespect or disinterest or attack or the million different negative perceptions we may have of our partner prior to us really asking questions. Now, for each of us, what is on our screen, the way we see the world, is a simple and innocent result of our unique life experiences. We often think that we're interpreting reality as it is, but are we questioning the way that interpretation is being delivered to us? Are we questioning why that interpretation is being delivered to us in that way? So that's the framework of the little example and analogy of the bad guy phenomenon. And from my experience in couples coaching, there hasn't been a bad guy. Maybe there's one that exists out there, I'm not sure, but I haven't found him. In each case, it has been a simple not having been on the other side of the wall. And so not understanding why that person does what they do. And so the process then is coming to an understanding of that. And then each person slowly identifying the parts of that that are most important to them. Because in order to come in harmony, there will be parts we'll have to let go of. And there will be parts that they'll have to let go of. But fulfillment and harmony can happen when we really get clear on what is the core of what is most important to me. And then the other person does the same thing. And then continue to communicate that with each other. And perhaps it's a continual refining. Like, okay, well, this is what I'm saying now that's most important to me, but after having communicated that, we see how it comes in such direct opposition to what our partner wants that the topic can't be left there. And so we have to further clarify, okay, that's what I thought was most important to me. What's even deeper than that? And then we attempt to land on that, and again, communicate that to our partner, and our partner does the same thing. And this process of really just clarifying and getting more and more clear, so that way there can be understanding between each person. And both people can end up feeling fulfilled. Rather than the perpetuation of us only believing what's on our own screen as the fact of the other. Even though we may get tidbits from the other here and there along the line, and kind of have it incorporated in our own thinking, but in most cases it's not really deep enough. It's what we believe the other person's intentions are for what they are saying or doing is not deep enough. It's kind of a surface level thing. It's kind of like the book analogy that I love to use. Each person has their own ideas about the other, but until this person takes the time to really ask, what's going on your screen? You're responding to me in an odd way. What do you see? And then they can begin to tell you, and you can help to clarify those points. Rather than someone responding in an odd way, and then we just use the information in our own book from people who have acted similar to us in our past experiences to respond back to them. And in which case, we are not responding to anything that's relevant to them. And so we really have to take the time to see what is on your computer screen. You're acting in an interesting way. What do you see? Just truly wanting to understand. And we can have expectations in relationships, and it's important to do so to some degree. But in order to get each other there, it requires a great deal of acceptance of where our partner is at this time. Again, we can have expectations in relationships, but in order to get each other there, it takes a great deal of acceptance of where each other are at currently. And so in order to even begin to accept, we have to ask more questions. What is on your computer screen? What way are you seeing me? What does this look like to you? Rather than just only referring to the way things have looked that are similar, the way things have looked in the past that are similar, and then responding in that way that would be totally irrelevant for this person. What is on your computer screen?